Up on this episode of Nothing to Bring.
As schools wind up, the DfE lands new guidance to enact in September. We reflect on the NFER's research on attendance and the new Education Secretary. Matt and I reflect on our retirement plans whilst being smug about running.
I'm Matt Morris.
I'm Sarah Johnson, and we have
Nothing to Bring. I want to go back to last time because I was talking about Easter eggs in film and TV, and not an apology, not to go back on anything, because I did.
You're saying you're wrong?
No, not at all. When would I be wrong? So I gave 3 examples, didn't I, of sort of Easter eggs in films. We had the Goonies one, which is still one of my favourites ever in terms of Easter eggs. But we also had the Rescuers, and then we also had the one from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And I did go back and look at that because that is how I remember it. I remember it being that you could see a frame up Jessica Rabbit's skirt, and so the story goes, you could see everything she had to show. And this came about because of a Laserdisc edition of the film. There have been various, it depends what you read on the internet, because there are some people who are absolutely adamant that that is the case. But the animators deliberately drew in her foof, let's call it.
Have you just called it foof?
Yeah, I didn't.
Do you mean vagina?
Yeah, I didn't want to be the one to say that word.
You know, you're allowed to say the word vagina.
I know, and I know I'm a grown-up, and I know that it's mostly adults that will listen to this. Okay.
But even if you're talking to children, you still call it a vagina or vulva.
Do we now?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Penis, vagina, vulva. You use the correct terminology rather than whatever you just called it.
Foof. Anyway, okay. So, depending on what you read on the internet, Sarah has lost it completely, unfortunately. But depending on what you read on the internet, there are accounts which suggest, look, it was deliberate. Somebody deliberately drew in her vagina for a frame or 2 frames. Okay. The debunking suggests that actually it's accidental, that it's a couple of frames where they didn't draw anything in. So the change in colour, and it all happens so quickly, that the change in discoloration suggests that it's just an error. And so people have seen a change in, because let's face it,
people fill in the gaps, don't they, essentially?
Absolutely. So the best wisdom is that it's actually an error that leads to that happening. That doesn't take away from the fact that, I told the story in all good faith. That's what people believe, and it is still what people believe.
So you basically told unevidenced information to
No.
91 viewers.
I told an accurate representation of a story that is out there. A bit like a few episodes ago, I told a story of Sir Robert de Shurland. We then went and looked up that story mid-episode.
Just to say, I didn't get involved in that. You looked it up. I don't get me involved in looking up stuff.
It's both of us on this show. It's a royal we. So I looked up the Robert de Shurland story, and I was pretty much there. It was a few details that were out, but obviously I missed out The Witch, which then became the title of the episode. But again, that's a variation of the story, The Witch. The Witch isn't in every variation of the story.
I like that you have a story, a mythological story based on the area in which you come from. Like, I don't have a story like that for Romford. I don't think. Pretty sure I don't.
I mean, does Romford have any interesting history?
So it's got one, as I remember, it's got one of the oldest markets. Yeah, that's it.
Riveting.
Yeah, cannot think of anything else. No, I don't think so. Can't think of anything in particular.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest area in the world. I don't know if it's improved. I suspect not.
And look, I don't want to talk poorly of where I come from, but it's a deprived part of the country, and it's. To be fair to it,
yours has particular geographical reasons for it as well, though, in terms of having to use the bridge to come over it and to leave it.
There is a lot of important history that comes with the Isle of Sheppey. What I'd say is, and I say deprived area, I had a wonderful childhood, and I grew up on the Isle of Sheppey, and lots of people take the mick out of the fact that I come from the Isle of Sheppey or out of it in general. But to be fair to it, it's probably come on hugely. It's had a lot of investment in the last sort of 10, 15 years. It's, it's seeing a bit more. It's just where it is. It struggles, like many places do, by geography, by the fact, yes, you have to travel over a bridge to get to it. And that can be quite isolating.
We need to go over there with our kids with a UV light at night time to find the scorpions, because I think our kids would love that.
Yeah. And this is, again, something I didn't know about until you told me about the scorpions. Maybe I'll find out something about Romford to educate you on.
And just go, oh, this, did you know? And I'll be like, I mean, it's not going to be as good as scorpions, is it? Unless there's secret elephants running about.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. So I thought I'd just full circle back to that, because I like to go away and sort of read up the stuff that we talked about to see how right or how wrong we are. I think it's a great game to play, because that was always the premise of what we did. We wouldn't come with too much in the way of research or evidence. We'd just come with our nonsenses in our heads and see where it gets us.
I was thinking about, I think sort of work is slowing down now, so there should be more time for our things that we enjoy. And I have managed to finish One Piece. That was really good. I enjoyed that. I watched again Masters of the Universe as soon as it came out again on TV and enjoyed it the second time round. But also, Matt, you've been running?
Yeah, I have. You've outed me as a runner.
I outed you as a runner. Are you now a runner?
Yeah. Well, I'm somebody who is trying to get fitter. I mean, you're a runner. You run, and you run far better than I can aspire to.
I think you're going to be faster than me, from what I can see on Strava, in that you're still stopping and running, aren't you? And it's measuring the whole pace. So your pace is going to be distinctly faster than mine. But I also figure I'm 5'1", so my pace is going to be it's going to be slow anyway. But I am now doing my 5 kilometres without stopping. It's taken me ages to get to 5 kilometres. It's taken me a year, which I know is particularly slow. But I'm really happy with it, and I've been going to the gym as well now.
I can see it taking me that long, because, as I said to you, so for context, I am doing Couch to 5K, which I've done in the past. Really enjoyed doing it previously, and when I started doing it, I noticed how quickly I was able to adapt to the jumps in time, to the length of time that you run for. You know, that each week it increases, and I was adapting to it, and my breathing, I'm asthmatic, so my breathing was adapting, my muscles are adapting, and I found it quite enjoyable until, and I've told you this story, until about week 6, and I think it's a 9-week program, and around week 6, week 7, you're going along, and it's kind of, you go from 90 seconds of running to 3 minutes of running to 5 minutes of running, and then all of a sudden Laura, your coach, turns around and goes, right, run for 20 minutes, Matt. She doesn't know my name, but anyway, let's assume that. But she is called Laura. She says, run for 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay, right, well, I'll do that then, and I will try and do that. And it wasn't so much that I couldn't do the running, it was that I got bored. And I found it really tough. So I was always running where I ran yesterday, which is pretty much on the flat part of where we live. We live in the Derbyshire Dales. So we're talking hills, but where our road is, it cuts across. So there is a flat that cuts across the hill where the road runs through that I can run. It's still a bit hilly, and so it's still a bit more impactful than, say, when I was running in the woods, which is where I've done most of my runs this time around. But yeah, I can't get past that mental block, or I'm going to find it difficult to get past that mental block.
I had the same thing where, it was just, my legs don't ache, my breathing's absolutely fine, nothing hurts. It was just like, I'm done now. I've done my running. And it's only since I think in the last 2 months since I've been able to do 5K, where I know exactly where I'm running to for 2.5, because it's 2.5 back and from my house, that it's enjoyable. I listen to music, really happy to kind of listen to music. And I actually feel when I get to that point, I can go further, but I'm meant to be taking things easy and resting. So I'm like, I can only do 5 kilometres. But yeah, there was this, it was just a block. It was just like, I said nothing hurt, breathing was fine. It's just like, I'm done now, done my stuff. But I kind of convinced now what I'm saying to myself is it's no different to walking, and you just means you get home quicker. And I say that to myself, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's fine. So, but it's good. It's good you started running, because it means, like I've been saying to you, Matt, are we running together, even though we're miles away? So I kind of run perhaps at the same time, not always, but it just, I don't know, it just feels. It's nice to run with somebody. It's
nice to have the constant check-in and the sort of the constant thumbs up. Because I run, I come home, no one's high-fiving me here in my household. They're just like, you're hot and sweaty, get in the shower. It's so it's nice to have that kind of, that check-in, that camaraderie when you do it. It's good. I could never do the whole running club thing. You do park runs, don't you?
I do park run on a Saturday when I've got sort of capacity, and I'm actually indifferent to the other people around. I quite like the running with the dog. So there's a nice dachshund that always runs quicker than me, which I'm always impressed by. I quite like the volunteers at the end that say kind of well done. Like I like that bit, but the other runners is by the by for me. I have looked at there's sort of running clubs in the area, like women running groups, and I have debated joining those. So I had the other day when I ran, a van driver bibbed me. I think for the first time, but I don't notice anything because I listen to music. And I was a bit like, it's 10 o'clock at night. Like, what are you doing? And I thought, actually, would it be safer to run in a sort of group with women? But the other bit is I like to do things on my own time and my own route. Like I know what my route is now. So, I'm not sure. I might join one.
When I was originally doing Couch to 5K, I found it difficult for me, it was a big confidence thing that I had to get over the initial, I'm going to run around and people are going to see me. So you get past that barrier, first of all, which didn't take too long. But I wanted to run somewhere where it was safe to run, where it was flat as well. Because as I say, it's quite hilly where we are. And so for the first few runs I did, I actually went down to our park in town. But again, it's dark. So I've been running recently in the woods. It's quite nice at this time of year because even if you run at 9 o'clock, it's still light in the woods. But you get to a certain area of the woods and there's a lot of coverage and it gets a bit darker. And I'm a bit of a scaredy cat. You know, I don't like the feeling of not being safe when you run. And then I think about, I don't want to be generalizing or stereotyping, but actually, you know, there needs to be a safe way for everybody to run. Men and women. And whilst running those first few times, I actually thought about there needs to be something like a park run, like a group run, but that is safe run. There needs to be something there for people that makes it safe. Because I think the running groups that you see, so I see running groups here all the time. But where we live, because we're in the Derbyshire Dales, it's a place that people come to do physical activity. You see people running all the time. You see people riding bikes all the time. Our road gets blocked off because people use the hills for official events to sprint up and down on bikes. So it's a place people come to. So when you see the running group, it doesn't feel like it's organised as that kind of that free run, that kind of, you know, I want to be going at my pace because I'm running a program. I don't want to be keeping up with all you lot because that's how fast you run. I'm not at your pace yet.
Yeah, when I first started running, I asked a female running group and they said, you have to be able to run 5K before you join us. And part of me appreciates that because you need people to kind of do the distance, although it doesn't really matter if they walk, I don't think. But it was off-putting and it felt quite cliquey. But I kind of get it because I suppose if they want to go their pace, but also I am flipping slow. Really slow. I didn't have the same issues about worrying what I looked like when I ran. I think, I was fine with it. Absolutely fine. My biggest irritant is my headphones cable getting on my nerves and my hair falling in my face. Drives me mad. But other than that, I'm just like, I'm happy.
But you can do things about that.
Yeah, I need to buy some headbands. And I tuck my headphone wire in. I can't use earbuds.
Get wireless headphones. But get like, I use these. So I use open headphones on a loop. So they tuck around my ears and they're not fall off.
So I do have big ones, but they're too big. They're too cumbersome for running. So I do have like proper wireless ones. So, but they kind of...
Yeah. You don't want like a pair of cans like I'm wearing. You don't want to wear those for running. No, but something that tucks over your ears would be...
Yeah, it would probably be all right.
For dirt cheap. I mean, some of them cost an absolute fortune. And,
and I will lose them. I will lose them.
It's something I have as an issue, again, with organised running, that in a lot of organised running, you're not allowed to wear headphones. Yes. And the expectations is if you are wearing headphones, you're wearing, like I said, these are bone conductive headphones.
Yeah. I was reading
so they're open, but what they said, they don't just say bone conductive. They say a specific brand, which are circa £145 for a pair of headphones.
Yeah,
like,
I just wouldn't join the club. There's no way.
No, that's a £6 pair of bone conductive headphones that do the job of allowing me to hear the program and also a bit of music while I'm running.
Maybe
I'm not after perfect audio.
Yeah. I just need to hear music, or
Yeah.
So, what other geeky things have you done except for starting to run?
I wouldn't say it's geeky. I'll tell you what I have watched, and you're going to tell me off because I've watched something when I haven't watched the things that you've suggested. But this is more kind of sort of in our house in the evening we have watched. I've watched the FIFA documentary, which is called FIFA Uncovered on Netflix, and it's really interesting because given we've just had the World Cup, and this. In my head, and people will say different to this. In my head, this is the worst World Cup we've ever had because it starts off with ticket pricing and ticket hiking and scalping. not just on the actual price of the tickets. This is the most expensive World Cup ever for tickets, but also you've had price gouging on things like transport. So, for example, in America, £15 train ticket was hiked to $15 train ticket was
It's
hiked to
like
98.
travelling in Britain.
Yeah. So the price went up enormously, hotels enormous. Then you had issues with fans not being allowed into the country because of really strict immigration rules. Had an official, you had a referee not allowed into the country.
Yeah, I
He was
read that.
an official of the World Cup because he was from Somalia. He was not allowed into the country to referee. You've then got the whole red card situation, which is where a
With
US
Trump.
player gets red carded. Trump phones up the president of FIFA, and all of a sudden the red card just goes away. Meanwhile, an England player gets red carded only a game later and gets a 2-game ban. So you've had all this. You've then had everything that's happened with regards to the whole conspiracy around Argentina. I do not believe for 1 second that FIFA has engineered a competition in order to get Argentina to the final. And I don't believe that on the ground, referees have been directed to do certain things in order to make sure Argentina get there. Let's face it, Argentina had a player sent off in the final. But what I do think has happened is I think there's been a level of leniency. I do think there are a number of things that have happened which are really against the spirit of the game or previous tournaments or just football in general that have not been jumped on in the way that they might have done with another country. So yeah, it goes down as, if not the worst World Cup, it's certainly the most controversial World Cup. And that's not meant to mention the most controversial thing, which is hydration breaks, which were getting booed by fans. So this was a 3-minute break in the middle of each half at every single game, all done under the guise of the welfare of the players, forgetting that quite a lot of the stadiums were air conditioned and had retractable roofs and were actually played indoors technically in a cooler environment. But quite a considerable number of the players were actually acclimatized to that level of heat anyway. Okay, let's level the playing field and let's have hydration breaks. But that's not what they were. They were an opportunity to sell more advertising. That's all it was. Because you didn't need them in every game, yet we got them in every game so that TV companies could put adverts on the screen or cut to an ad break. And that was all being backed by FIFA. Yeah, it's going to go down certainly as one of the most controversial, if not the most controversial World Cup of all time. And so coming back to this FIFA documentary, you see all the things that unfold over the last, over the last 15 years or so. And it's like, I can't wait to get to the end of the documentary and see how FIFA is finally taken down. Because you watch it thinking there's no way this organization can exist anymore. In the back of your head, you're going, yeah, but I've just watched them and all this controversy anyway. I mean, the whole backstory of FIFA and sort of from 2015 onwards, with bribery, scandals, corruption, many people facing prison sentences, many people being banned from footballing activities. It's horrendous. Yet at the end of it all, FIFA is seen as the victim in everything and is then allowed to go on continuing to behave the same way. It's just fascinating. It's fascinating.
So, was that like a hour documentary type thing, or was it over a couple of episodes?
It's a 4-part documentary. It's about 4 hours.
And what's it on?
It's on Netflix, and it goes over quite a period of time. And even if you're not into football, it doesn't matter. It's a fascinating insight into an organization which actually has real, if you think about it, it's a non-profit organization that has decided at some point in the past it is in charge of global football and has allowed to become the governing body for football globally around the world. And it all came to be on a sort of a gentleman's handshake, really.
Yeah, just sort of evolved.
And as a result of that, this organization, it's a criminal enterprise. Certainly when you look at what's happened in the last 15, 20 years, how can that just continue to carry on in that way? It's just fascinating. And it kind of, you can compare it to so many other things that happen in non-profit organizations, in charities all the time. They just wouldn't exist if that happened. It's the level of political power that this organization has, which has kept it in place.
I shall have a watch then.
I think it's worth it. Yeah, I think even if you're not into football, I think it's a good watch.
I'm not into farming or Jeremy Clarkson, but Jeremy Clarkson's farm is brilliant. I've recommended that to you before, but you're like, no.
Yeah, because I can't watch Jeremy Clarkson.
So Jeremy Clarkson, if you're listening to this, I think you come across really well in Jeremy Clarkson's farm. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a particular fan of Top Gear. He's done so much for farming, and it shows the kind of dilemmas of farming and the challenges. And one thing that really struck me was Jeremy Clarkson talking about he'd done everything right in terms of the crops, but it didn't matter that he'd done everything right because the weather was bad. And once the weather's bad, his crops failed. And that's what routinely farmers have to deal with, that actually they can do all the right things, they can have all the science behind it, map out the field, do everything you're meant to do, and if the weather fails, then your crops fail. That's it. It's really good. I'm going to recommend it again to you, but I understand that you're not going to take my recommendation.
Yeah, I'm just not. Do you know? I watched Top Gear. I was a sort of a casual viewer of Top Gear.
Are you into cars?
Not really. No.
I think you were.
Top Gear is not a program about cars. Top Gear is a comedy show
with travelling,
with cars as the literal vehicle to deliver the comedy. The best stuff they ever produced is not the regular weekly shows. It's the big one-offs where they go abroad and travel around another country.
There's one where they went to Cambodia and it just looked absolutely stunning, looked beautiful.
Yeah. So I was a big fan of all of that. I stopped being a big fan when he lost his job because he punched somebody because of his arrogance.
Punched a guy called Asheen.
So that's, at that point you lose respect for people.
You can't be punching people, can you, as a kind of standard? We've not done many geeky things this week, but we've still spoken about geeky things for 28 minutes. I wonder if I could move us gently onto education news. As we're kind of recording this, all schools now have broken up. But there's been quite a lot of shifts with different things that are happening. So we have a new cabinet. So Andy Burnham became the Prime Minister on Monday, 20th of July. And that was after Keir Starmer resigned. In terms of education, it's meant Lucy Powell is a new Secretary of State for Education, and she has been an MP for Manchester Central since the 2012 by-election, and she's a deputy leader of the Labour Party. Lucy is the Education Secretary in 10 years. And I suppose some of my kind of things thinking about really, this was quite interesting. I don't know how relevant this is because this was 10 years ago and I think the argument's lost now, is that she's quite, he campaigned against the Conservative White Paper in 2016 requiring every school to become an academy. And then when the government dropped this, she called it a humiliating climb down for the leadership. And then when she resigned, she cited that reversal as an achievement of her time in post. I think the reality is, whether or not she's for or against academies, 83% of state schools are academies now anyway. So I don't know how it's not going to change much, is it really? I don't think. Because what would it change?
Well, look, we now have a system which is largely based around the academisation of schools and multi-academy trusts being the mechanism for school improvement. And there is no way back from that without fundamentally completely overhauling the education system. And what would you do? You would have to either reinstitute some of the local authorities or create something completely different. And I can't see that happening. And I thought about this the other day, and I said this to a colleague actually. It should not matter which multi-academy trust you are in. It only becomes a problem when you're in the wrong one.
How does a trust become the wrong one?
When it no longer understands its purpose, and its purpose is to benefit the future, the education of young people, and to provide them with the opportunities to succeed in the real world, in life, in the workplace.
Do you think many trusts fall into that space?
As in fall into the lose their way?
Yeah, you obviously don't name them if you do think.
I think, yes, I think there are more than people realise that do that. I think with everything in education, and I'll preface this by saying there are some amazing multi-academy trusts, and particularly in the special and AP landscape, there are some incredible multi-academy trusts. And there are multi-academy trusts who do really, really well by being quite under the radar, by not being outspoken, by just doing the job and focusing on the schools. And I can think of, in the area where I work, I can think of 3 or 4 I'd say are absolutely outstanding multi-academy trusts, largely in the primary sector, where they are relatively unheard of, yet are quite big and are quite successful. And it's that unheard of bit that is part of their success, because they're focusing on not promoting themselves. They're not focusing on being outspoken.
I have an issue So on X, there are some schools, not necessarily in academies, by the way, some are, which highlight children and I would say expose them to public kind of dialogue in order to showcase the work that they're doing. So it's not them being proud about the children, but it's about them being proud about the school. And I think that's a subtle difference around it as well, that actually you can be really proud of the children within your schools. I don't think you need to advertise it on X, by the way, but also most of the time when it's promoted on X, it's actually about promoting the staff within your school and the personalities within your school, rather than actually going, these children are great, these children doing great things, and it's wonderful. Obviously, schools, I think, schools shape children in lots of different ways, but that's not the only influence a child has. They have a lot of other influences as well. And I find it uncomfortable, I think, on X when there's photographs of children and, showing their faces and especially when it's more about political point scoring as well. Again, I'm not going to mention names. If you're on X, it's probably fairly obvious. If you're not on X, don't bother going on it. It's an absolute filth place.
Yeah, and we talked about how most teachers have pretty much moved away from X now. I've not used it I'd say I've not used it in about 3 years now.
I am, because I advertise the podcast, and I don't think you're on there anymore, so I can't tag you. So I use it a little bit, but it's weird because I used to use X a lot, and it was very much about marketing my role.
Yeah,
and I've pulled back from that because of X has become a very difficult space. But I miss the kind of community. I do miss it, but it is just, it's a lot of racism and hate now, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a lot of bile and division. My account is still there, and I will go on. I don't use it. I think I've deleted the app off my phone. But if I was to go on and just look at my feed is now made up of. And remember that, there was a time when, and it's still probably quite true when you use social media, you do exist in a bit of an echo chamber.
Yeah,
you exist, politically, all of those things. And I used to go on to that, and it was very, very positive. It was, it was very much the world in which I work, the community. I go on there now, and it's the absolute opposite. It's almost like a move has been made to stop you from being in that echo chamber. That the algorithms that play on X are there to create division, to create discourse that
have to really,
it's contrary to your.
You have to search for people and be part of that community.
Yeah. Just going back though, just going back, because I think we do need to say that we talked there about multi-academy trust, and I did say yes, there are some fantastic multi-academy trusts there. That bit there, that's not about multi-academy trust bashing. To kind of full circle back to the point I was making at the start, it's the world we are in now. That's the world, that's the education world that we exist in. And to reiterate the point I was making, it should not matter which multi-academy trust you're in, because they should all be doing the same thing. And I said this recently to a colleague whose school was going into a MAT, and she said to me, well, what do you think? I said, you'll be fine. The kids will be fine. The staff will be fine. And why shouldn't they? Because really it shouldn't matter. There are times when parents do not even know which multi-academy trust their child's school is in.
Yeah,
Again, why should they? It doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't be important.
My twins going into primary school, my husband mentioned they're part of an academy trust. I was like, I didn't realise. Because actually, what was important to me, it was the local school that was a walk away from home. That was it.
Yeah.
And I haven't even looked at the Ofsted report either. I've just gone, it's the local school. That's all I'm interested in. And that kind of should be what it's about. Most schools are pretty much the same, aren't they? Really? Are they that much different anymore?
You just have that continuum, don't you?
Yeah.
And it's the same in everything education. The continuum is the same. The variation of quality that you get, that's the same for schools. That's the same for alternative provisions. That's the same for multi-academy trust. Everything in education has got that continuum of provision. Most stuff sits quite neatly somewhere in the middle of that continuum. And it's only the outliers that really stand out.
Yeah, the ones
and hopefully, the ones you're talking about on X.
Yeah, who say that they're really good. But you sort of think about, really? The other thing is, mentioned obviously end of term. With that, there was substantial DfE updates on safeguarding, enrichment and attendance, and released late in the summer term. Leaders told Tess they've been left with little time to implement. You've got the KICSI, so Keeping Children Safe in Education, 2026. Safeguarding leads have called the timeframes unrealistic. The proposed changes are more extensive than usual, including updated child protection policy advice, guidance on the safe use of generative AI, which we've spoken about before, haven't we, Matt?
Yep.
And an expectation of robust cover when a designated safeguarding lead is unavailable. Yeah, so it's not about the content. So one deputy head made the point that nothing proposed is a bad idea, but roughly 20 new pages arriving weeks before the end of term means the work realistically lands in the holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are some of the things.
And it happens every year. It happens every single year.
It's not new, is it? Yeah.
It's not new, but on those years because we have had a couple of years in recent history where not a lot has changed. But on those years when a lot does change, you need the time to look at that. Because, look, if you're putting in something to statutory guidance, which has an impact on structure, that means that has an impact on money. You've got to be able to plan and prepare for that.
I mean, I think most places would cover a DSL anyway. So I wonder about how much impact that's going to have. I suspect that's more challenging in smaller, village primary schools, for example. Some of them might only have 30 children, and you've got, especially in rural communities as well. I think that can be really difficult about how realistically can we cover this. Most times, the bigger schools are going to have economies of scale, especially those in academies as well. They're going to have economies of scale that if your designated safeguarding lead is absent, there may well be someone who can pick it up, but you have a more formalised process for that, I'm sure.
This happens every year, and it's another one of those things where it's fine. Teachers will just deal with it. Teachers will just pick it up. Don't worry. It's that very narcissistic expectation that teachers will work in their holiday. So I have this kind of rule, and it's a rule I use with people who work with me and for me, that essentially 8 a.m. on a Monday morning comes immediately after 4:30 or 5 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. Okay, so whatever time you finish on a Friday, let's say it's 5 p.m. Okay, 8 o'clock comes immediately after 5 p.m. 8 o'clock Monday morning. There is no Saturday, Sunday. But so basically, what if that is not time for people to do work? Okay, so if somebody says to you at 4:30, at 4:45, I want that for Monday morning, they are saying we want you to work through the weekend. So I've been in conversations with people where you come in on a Monday and said, well, I asked for that on Friday afternoon for today. And I've said, but that was 2 minutes ago. You asked for that 2 minutes ago. And I use that language and people look at me and laugh. I say, I'm not laughing. That's 2 minutes ago, because that time isn't yours in between. That time belongs to my family. That time belongs to my children, not to you. And it's like I also have a rule, which is the first day back after something, and that could be a holiday, could even be a weekend. So Mondays should never be a deadline. So you should never have a deadline the first day you return from anything, whether it's a weekend, whether it's a holiday, whatever it is.
You should speak to the DfE.
You are promoting the idea of working through other people's time.
I think I spoke to alternative provision the end of last week. And we were talking about Friday afternoons and how that's always your safeguarding type. That's always a safeguarding issue. I think I blogged about it. So you can always put the Substack, if you want, Matt, in the show notes. That I'm taking it easy. I've been very, very unwell. I've worked continually since I was 21 in quite high-paced, difficult settings. And I think with that, you've only got so much time. And actually, when you mentioned about time with family, I think that's the time that has been stolen from me in terms of work, because I've been massively committed working with, safeguarding, attendance, behaviour. It would absolutely. I like your approach of 4:30 straight into Monday, because I would work routinely and continually throughout the weekends and evenings and things like that. And I think there's a price to pay for that. Actually, it becomes too much eventually, and it meant that my family didn't have me kind of available. And like today was the first time I've taken my twins and my youngest child swimming together, because I didn't have capacity or the energy all the time. But now I've stopped working pretty much. I've got capacity and time. And I think working in the kind of special needs sector and alternative provision, I think is particularly high paced. But I think working in any education sector, you just carry on working throughout the holidays, don't you?
I can draw a really simple comparison there from when I worked in the mainstream sector to then when I worked in the alternative provision sector. So when I worked as a senior leader in secondary education, I had the time in the day to do my work. I had to pick things up. I had to deal with things. I did quite a lot of the day-to-day operational running of the school alongside other leaders, but there was time in the day to do my work. I still took work home with me, but when I then moved to the alternative provision sector, what I found, and I think this is probably quite true, and it's true of schools I know who are special schools, particularly SEMH special schools, as well as alternative provisions. As a leader, you spend a lot of time on the shop floor, on the corridor, going into classrooms, working with children, talking to children. But you can't do the job of the leader, the workload job during the day, and you have to find a way to do that. That's really difficult, and it does end up then taking up more of your time. So I think it's very true that the specialist sector can become more of a drain on your personal time. It's a very rewarding sector to work in.
I mean, I think as time has gone on, I think some of those kind of difficulties and challenges are now in mainstream as well. I think children have become, I don't know why, more complex, more challenging, or there's more responsibilities for teachers. You say it all the time, education is, does everything now. I think even in mainstream, I think that's now the case, especially those that are leading in pastoral teams in particular. It's just constant. They can't do the work because it's constant.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. I'm drawing my comparisons on when I was a leader in mainstream, going back nearly 15 years ago, 12, 13 years ago. Back, when I was younger and less grey in the beard.
And on the head hair.
Look, no, that's not too bad, actually. For, there's a little bit of a patch there, but, yeah.
You could use them just for men.
Someone said this to me recently.
I mean, it might be me.
I don't know. I certainly said or suggested it, and someone said, yeah, you could use just... I'm not sure I'd want to. I'm not sure it bothers me. I'm not sure I care enough.
You look distinguished, Matt. You look distinguished.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, you do like to tell me how old I am on a regular basis.
Also, you're not that much older than me, because I asked you the other day.
And this is what annoys me, is I think there's about 3 years between us, and you act as if there's about 15. You talk as if I'm like some sort of decrepit, like I'm nearing retirement, and there you are just getting your second wind.
If you were nearing retirement, you'd be so happy. You'd be playing Planet Coaster till the cows come home. Don't pretend that would be an insult. You'd be well up for that.
If I was nearing retirement, I'd had the money saved up. Yeah, I might be even be taking up golf. Who knows? That's the sort of thing you do, isn't it? Genuinely, though, do you know what I would want to do when I got to sort of retirement age? We have an old heritage steam train line that kind of runs into our town and out of our town in the Derbyshire Dales.
This is going to be so cute, isn't it?
I would... You've referred to me as cute a lot off podcasts recently.
Because you do cute things like play computer games and...
Thanks.
Where you build theme parks.
I don't feel belittled at all. So anyway, what I'm saying is if I at the point where I retire, I'd love to go and just volunteer on the sort of the heritage line, doing the work, running the trains, not necessarily running the trains, but doing part of the running of the organisation. And they do like Christmas events with the Christmas train with the kids. I do all of that. I think that's the sort of thing that I would probably end up doing. I can't see myself sitting still in retirement.
My plan is when I'm 50, I would have finished my PhD. That's my target. 50 to 70, I'm going to retrain as an actor. And I'm going to be in theatre and film productions.
And famous.
I want to be good.
The two don't have to be exclusive.
No, they don't. But my priority would be I want to be good.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, that's. I want to be someone where people go, I want to see her in the theatre. Absolutely. I also want to write plays as well. So that's my retirement-ish type plan. I know 50 to 70 isn't retirement per se, but I figure 20 years is enough in a work.
Yeah, and lots of actors start late. It's a calling that people do come into later in life.
So I have this real kind of panic. So people may or may not know I've been diagnosed with bipolar, so I've been manic, and I was really worried that my wanting to go into acting was really just being just mania. But as I've become more settled, I still want to go into acting. And not in a way that I don't know if I'm going to be any good at it. Whereas when I wanted to be a singer and stuff like that when I was manic, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be amazing at it. Can't sing at all. So this is my kind of what I want to stay on it.
And you said this to me, and I've heard you talk about wanting to be an actor and to write and those sort of things. And I said, I don't feel like you were manic in that discussion. And then you said, well, does it show? And I thought, well, actually, I don't know, but it certainly didn't feel like, I can imagine how mania comes on and how you would have presented. You presented it as a really thorough, thought out plan, as something that you'd spent a lot of time thinking about and considering.
So when I was younger, I wanted to be an actor, and I'd applied to go to university to do kind of acting courses as well as sociology, and the sociology won for whatever reason, even though I did better in theatre studies. And Matt and I have spoken about this. I was invited for a young writers Royal Court circle for kind of budding writers, and I didn't do it for silly reasons where I prioritised other people's needs before my own, and I should have done it. So who knows where my life would have gone. But yes, that's my retirement plan, Matt.
And you should never step away from not doing some sort of writing. I once entered, never told you this, I once entered a Super TED writing competition and got a letter back from Super Ted and Spotty Man, and a book.
Because your writing was that good.
I don't think your writing had to be that good. I think you just had to write and you got something. I wrote, no one else did. No one, and I don't know if it was a thing I saw on TV. I don't know if it was a school thing. I did that, and I was over the moon at this letter I got back from Super Ted.
Again, that's very cute. That's very
cute.
And that's objectively very cute.
I would have been about 7 or 8.
Yeah, see, it has to be cute.
I mean, yeah, you can apply cute to that, but 47-year-old grizzled. No, I don't think that's cute.
I've got one more thing to talk about before we end the podcast.
Go for it.
It's really hot in my house.
And it's really cool here.
Yeah, so I just want to say, people who are perhaps watching this on YouTube, or for those that aren't, Matt is wearing his hoodie. Thick hoodie. I'm wearing a t-shirt. It's not because I haven't bought Matt a t-shirt. He does have one, but apparently it's really cool in his house. It's boiling in mine. Absolutely boiling. Yes, the National Foundation for Educational Research researched 10 mainstream secondary schools as case studies. They had interviews with parents and carers, senior leaders and persistently absent pupils, and they surveyed about 400 parents and carers across 8 of those schools. It's actually probably not a lot. But pupils, parents and school see well-being as a major factor in post-pandemic absence. They also cite online bullying over social media linked to declining attendance. And the other contributors for poor attendance is cost of holidays outside term time, keeping children home for minor illness. 7% of surveyed parents saw time off for poor mental health or well-being as legitimate. I mean, I would as well. If you're unwell mentally, you wouldn't go to work, would you? Yeah, I've just had a whole conversation going, I've been diagnosed with bipolar, I need to step out from work. If a kid had, same. Sorry, that really annoyed me. And school staff frequently pushed back on that, stressing the well-being benefits of attending. Fines were considered counterproductive for health and well-being absence, and all it did was strain the relationships with school. There we are. That's my little bit of research I've done for you, Matt.
Interesting. There is one of the things in there, and it's something that I find really frustrating, is that local guidance and national guidance about illness often conflict. In the part of the world that I live, in schools, in the local authority, and then as schools have then become academies and joined multi-academy trusts, and lots of the same sort of policies have gone across. The standard sort of policy is if you're sick as a child, you're not allowed to return to school within 48 hours. That's a policy that exists in lots of places all over the country, but it also is sort of in the NHS guidance about generally people going back to work as well, not just children, but if you're sickness, you've got sickness bug, 48 hours. And in schools that can be applied very differently. Sometimes that's applied very, very rigorously. Sometimes there's a sort of a more nuanced approach to it. The national guidance says as soon as your child is okay to send them to go to school, send them to school. So let's say your child has woken up in the morning, is a little bit ill, they're okay in the afternoon, send them to school in the afternoon. So the national guidance contradicts both NHS guidance and local authority and school policy.
We had that with the weather, didn't we, when we had the heat wave? One part you've got, it's red warning, it's risks of life to even people that aren't vulnerable, don't do anything, DFE, come into school. And those two things, and I think lots of schools did really well, and they might have had air conditioning, or they, may do in lots of different ways, or people weren't feeling great and they didn't do much work, but whatever. But it's really frustrating when you've got different government departments having these kind of conflicting perspectives. It's really frustrating. And which one wins? Which one trumps the other?
Ultimately, it's not about what trumps the other. It's about the extent to which you as a school are going to be held accountable for your attendance headline. And we've talked about this loads on this podcast about attendance and headlines and how we should take more nuanced approaches to attendance. We should take more student-centred approaches to attendance. But until, at a national level, we move away from that as policy, and until Ofsted stop coming in and going, well, nationally it's this, therefore you should be at least that or higher, the pressure is always going to be on the schools. And then that pressure is then pushed down to parents. And that's what then creates the problem, because the problem arises from the constant pressure that is put on parents and schools to have really good attendance, even when sometimes it's not possible. I'm not talking about things like term time holidays, but actually, again, as a parent, and we talked about this before, as a parent, let me throw in there, whose right is it to say whether or not that child should go on a holiday? Should that not be mine as a parent?
It's interesting. So the first week that my twins are at school, they've got the wedding of their aunt on the Friday, and we probably have to take half a day on the Thursday as well to go travel up to Bristol. And I'm really cool because obviously we're going to go. It's my sister-in-law's wedding. You know, that goes without saying. But I've then got to write an email to go, yeah, sorry, on the first week, I'm taking 2 of the children out of your school, which will really affect your data. And obviously, they can't do anything about it. And I can't do anything about it. But it feels that there's a tension inherent in just asking the question. Well, it's not asking the question, it's saying. And it feels like an uncomfortable way of starting a relationship with a school. I feel more stressed about it, I think, than what I would if it was my 16-year-old. So when she first went into school, she had 100% attendance in primary school. But I also don't think I would feel stressed about her having to have a day off. I think I would now. I'm sure I'll get over it. If my kids need a day off, they need a day off. But
yeah, but you're right. The tension you are feeling there is actually, it's about perception, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't want the school to.
Do
be
they
bad
think
to me.
I'm going to be I'm a bad parent?
Yeah. Because I'm taking my kids to their auntie's wedding.
Week 1, I'm already taking children out. How often am I going to do this? It's perception. There was an interesting thing about attendance I saw today, actually, which is it's Restore. So Restore have said that if elected, Restore will ensure that a parent can take their child out of school for up to 5 days, fine-free. The argument that is given is a religious one. It's because children who are non-Christian are allowed to be taken out of school for their own faith's religious days. So, if you like, Islamic children would come out.
Jewish kids on the New Year, Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
Yep.
So, because of that, all children should be allowed out of school for 5 days, of fines, to do what they want.
But then Christians have Christmas and Easter off.
There you go. However, the point is, all of the religious holidays are already covered.
Yeah, already done it.
If anything, a holiday pattern, and it's not to say it's discriminatory, but it is based on Christian festivals.
It's based on Christian values, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So therefore, for other faiths to be allowed to take their children out is only restoring an inclusive approach. The argument of Restore is, no, let's just, so that people, and it's basically so that people can go on cheap holidays.
Yeah. And you know what?
And it's a gimmick to get a vote.
That's their manifesto. Just be honest about it. You don't have to pretend you don't need to other the kind of people with different religious groups. I know Restore is Restore, but you still don't have to behave in that way. You can just go, just be honest, be transparent. You know, for too long, people have been fined for taking their kids out of school. This is what we think needs to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think some people will just jump on it because it's a gimmick and they like those sorts of gimmicks.
It's very concrete, isn't it? It's a very easy thing to do. It is. But
a wider view of people would actually accept it more so if you did come out and say, this is because holidays are too expensive in school holiday time. Yes, be absolutely transparent about what you're trying to do, and people will believe you more.
Also, what you probably do with doing that is you stop having the lies between schools and parents, because parents will feel able to say, I'm taking my child off. Because actually, I don't know how many there are. Having a look on Facebook groups, there's quite a few, that actually just having that honesty, or people just suck up the fines because it's still worthwhile. So
someone said that recently. There was a recent case where a family had gone to Disney World, and it was like, we got it cheaper because it was in term time, and so a 60 quid fine, 2 children, 120 quid. Yeah, we'll just suck that up as part of the 10 grand we've already paid for the holiday. Thank you for joining us once again and for listening to the ramblings of 2 absolute buffoons, where we have in this episode talked about vaginas or foofs, as I refer to them, which I'm sure is going to keep Sarah laughing from now until the next episode. So thank you once again. It's been great. If you've joined us, if this is your first time joining us and you thought, what the hell is that? Stick around. It gets better. I promise you. Please do join us in the comment section on YouTube. We've had some really good conversations over the last few episodes, and we picked up a few people there that we've not seen before, and it's been good to have a little chat with them and just talk over some of the random stuff that we've talked about as well. So thank you for joining us. From us,
I'm Sarah Johnson.
and I'm Matt Morris, and we have
Nothing to bring.
What distracted you?
Pen.
You got distracted by a pen.